that the sugar candy machine itself is individual asset. That asset no need to group with the other assets to generate the cash. This is example of sugar candy machine is example for individual asset. For that sugar candy machine separately, individually, you can recognize any impairment loss either under historical cost or in revalued price. This is example for individual asset. Second one, suppose we are running one small restaurant. For that restaurant, we have furniture like tables, chairs, building, wet grinder, gas, stove, crockery, etc. In this restaurant, only wet grinder itself cannot generate cash. In that restaurant, to generate the cash, we have to use not only wet grinder, we have to use other assets. All these assets as a group can generate cash. This group of assets is technically called cash generating unit, CGU. But I want to find any impairment loss for wet grinder. It is not an individual asset. We have to think about entire group. In that group, we have one asset. For this asset, we are trying to find any impairment loss of. How to find? For that, we have some procedure according to AS-28. For identification of impairment loss, for assets belongs to CGU. This is dividing into two methods. In method number 1, we have to apply bottom-up test. In some cases, we have to apply not only bottom-up test, but also top-down test shall be applied. When to apply bottom-up test, when to apply bottom-up and top-down approach. If our organization having balance sheet, we have building, machinery, furniture, some other assets. These three are CGU, means can generate cash in the combination of these assets. These three assets are cash generating unit, say 1. We have another building, another machinery, another furniture, some other equipment also. These group of assets also generating as a group cash flow. This is, let us say, cash generating unit 2. Apart from CGU1, CGU2, we have some common assets. Example, goodwill and corporate office building, general administrative building. This is called corporate asset, means goodwill, this building, corporate building, general use, not only for the CGU1 but also for CGU2. This is the common assets. When to apply bottom up test? If this common asset of goodwill and building like etc. corporate assets, if possible to allocate to CGU1, CGU2 on reasonable basis, possible to allocate common assets to various CGUs, then we have to apply bottom up test. If it is not possible to allocate the common assets between or among various CGUs, then we have to apply bottom up test and top down test. How to apply bottom up test? When common assets are possible to allocate between or among one or more CGUs. This impairment loss belongs to any particular asset, belongs to a particular CGU. Bottom up test, we have number of steps. Step number 1, identify CGU. What group of assets shall be included in this CGU? Entire organization assets are dividing into number of CGUs. What are the assets to be included to our CGU? First, that group of assets shall be identified is called identification of CGU. Step 2, determine net sale price of this CGU. As I already told you, in our balance sheet we have goodwill, say 10 lakh, corporate asset like building etc. 7 lakh, and CGU1 means building, machinery, furniture, whatever it may be. These small group generating cash flow. That's why we have identified these group of assets into, in our case, step number 1, identification of CGU. CGU1. Similarly, CGU2, building, machinery, furniture, other equipment etc. These group of assets are CGU2. In our problem, I have some doubt on the machinery. It is losing its value. I am not using this machinery separately to cash generation. I can't use. I can use along with other assets to generate the cash. So, impairment loss of this machinery, not the individual asset case. It is CGU case. So, first identify the group of assets belongs to our CGU. That is step number 1, identification of CGU. Step 2, determine the net sale price. If this CGU, all the assets are sold, how much net sale price will be, shall be identified. Step number 2, determination of net sale price of this CGU. Step 3, determination of value in use of this CGU. by using of this group of assets means CGU1, how much net cash flow will be generated over its useful life shall be converted into present value. I am not talking about one particular piece of asset. I am talking about group of assets belongs to this CGU. How much value in use, net cash flow will be generated in future by using of these group of assets shall be converted into present value. This is called value in use of CGU1. Step 3. Determine recoverable value of this CGU. For recoverable value of this CGU, formula will be net sale price of this CGU, value in use of this CGU, whichever is higher. Whichever is higher is nothing but recoverable value of CGU. Step 4. Determination of carrying amount of this CGU excluding common assets. Excluding common assets. Determine carrying amounts of CGU excluding common assets. Meaning is, I am trying to find the impairment loss of CGU1. Whatever the book values of these group of assets, building, book value, machinery, book value, furniture, book value, these are the book values of this CGU are to be taken. This is determination of carrying amount of CGU assets carrying amount excluding common assets, goodwill and corporate asset. Next step. Step 5. Allocate this common goodwill between this CGU and other CGUs. This goodwill is possible to allocate between or among various CGUs. This is goodwill carrying amount or book value shall be allocated to all CGUs. In our problem, we are trying to find impairment loss of CGU1. So, in step number 5, carrying amount of the total goodwill, what amount is allocated to our CGU, that amount we have to take here. Determination of carrying amount of goodwill allocated to our CGU. Similarly, step number 6, corporate assets like general administrative building etc., common equipments, common assets, common any other intangible assets, whatever it may be, license to trademarks etc. etc. What that corporate assets shall be allocated among various CGUs. Carrying amount of this corporate asset, what portion allocated to our CGU1, that carrying amount shall be determined. Determination of carrying amount of corporate assets allocated to this CGU. Then step 7, let us find total carrying amount of entire this CGU. That is carrying amount identified in step number 4, carrying amount identified in step number 5, carrying amount identified in step number 6. Total is total carrying amount of entire this CGU. Important point in our problem, goodwill, corporate assets possible to allocate. We are allocating of the goodwill and corporate assets process is called bottom up test. Meaning is 10 lakh goodwill, some amount is allocated to CGU1, some amount is allocated to CGU2. This process of allocation of goodwill between or among CGUs process is called bottom up test. In our steps, step number 5, goodwill is allocated some amount to our CGU. This is called bottom up test, sir. Similarly, corporate asset also allocated in step number 6, some portion to our CGU. This is called bottom up test. Bottom up test means common assets allocating, common assets carrying amount allocating to various CGUs possible to allocate. The allocation process is called bottom up test. Now, recoverable value is ready in step number 3. Carrying amount of CGU in step number 7 is ready. I am not taking individual assets. I am taking group of assets. Group of assets means CGU. Entire CGU recoverable value in step number 3. Entire CGU total carrying amount in step number 7. Step number 8 is impairment loss of this CGU is equal to carrying amount of this CGU in step number 7 minus carrying recoverable value of this entire CGU in step number 3. The difference is nothing but the impairment loss. Impairment loss identified in step number 8 shall be allocated first to goodwill. Impairment loss identified in step number 8 shall be first to allocated. Allocation of impairment loss first to goodwill allocated to this CGU. In our example, total goodwill is 10 lakh. Out of this 10 lakh goodwill, suppose 2 lakh goodwill is allocated to CGU1. 2 lakh goodwill is allocated to CGU1. In our problem, suppose in step number 8, impairment loss is equal to say 4 lakh. This impairment loss 4 lakh first shall be deducted from goodwill allocated to this CGU. In our example, goodwill 10 lakh, 2 lakh goodwill is allocated to CGU1. Impairment loss is 4 lakh. This 4 lakh first shall be adjusted from goodwill 2 lakh allocated to this CGU. Still we have another 2 lakh loss. That 2 lakh balance loss shall be allocated to various individual assets held in CGU1 and corporate asset allocated to this CGU1 in the ratio of carrying book values.